everybody. Welcome to Mom Talk with Kate and Kristen, your new go-to spot where motherhood meets understanding, support, and practical advice from therapists, moms, and friends.
So whether you're up late with a newborn or navigating the challenges of the teen years, you're not alone. Every episode, we're hoping to share something new. Maybe you can laugh with us, cry with us, and we're just all navigating this parenting thing together. So this is our first episode. We're hoping to post these weekly. And so today we're talking about something that comes up a lot in therapy sessions for us, but then also just in our own lives. Today we're talking about mom rage. So I'm assuming and hoping that this resonates with a lot of people, and hopefully we learned something helpful today.
So I think, like Kate said, mom rage, we are all experiencing this. I know I do.
Yes.
And I know I hear from a lot of people that I know personally who have kids, and it can be really scary and unexpected when it first happens, because I don't know, speaking for myself, I never went into parenting being the person who's like, I'm gonna yell at my kids or lose my temper, or honestly sometimes just feel like I'm having an absolute breakdown. So if this is you, I want you to know that every single parent is probably experiencing this at some point, and you are still a great mom.
And I was just thinking too, it's like we talked so much about like toddler tantrums and meltdowns and breakdowns, and then this is like the example of us having that exact same experience, right? Where we know we shouldn't respond in that way, and it's almost like an out-of-body experience where all of a sudden the feelings, the anger, the rage gets so big that we react in a way that we obviously wouldn't have liked to have if we were in a better place, right? But very much so, like when our toddlers have that same thing and they're doing something that looks so ridiculous to us, right?
It's an adult tantrum. This is a mom tantrum.
Yes. But for good reason.
Always. Just like our kids.
Yes.
For good
yes,
reason.
Also, yes.
And what's interesting, and I think parallel to our kids, is that it's happening from something that seems really small and ridiculous in that moment. Like I can think for the last time, like I really felt like that bubbling inside feeling of really angry. My kids were spinning on my office chair. They do it all the time. Don't know why. That was like the melting point for my day that I didn't in that moment, but have before, was going to lose it. And I don't know if it was the sound of the spinning, the looking at the spinning, the fact that they were in my office. I really don't know what it was, but that was it. And looking back, like that's kind of ridiculous, because like I said, they spin on this chair all the time. They think it's like the funnest game. And I think that brings up a really good point about like, why is this happening to us? Right? And it's not usually about the thing that set us off in that moment.
Like almost never, I think. I think it's really about, well, it's one of those things, and I think for a lot of us it's so unusual because before having kids, I don't think a lot of us really experience this heightened level of like rage, right? For the most part, I'm sure some people do, but it seems to be like really targeted towards this parenting piece. And I think that, well, a couple of things that I think come up and is this idea that I think parenting is actually a lot harder than people think it's going to be. It's this absolute crazy transition in life, right? Regardless of how wonderful you are and how prepped you are and equipped you are, like it is hard.
It is so hard.
It is so hard. And every part of your life continues. You just add in parenting. Like you're still working, or you're still, a homemaker, you're still a partner, you're still a friend, and now you're also a full-time parent.
Absolutely. And even if you're a part-time parent, right? Like even if you're not with your kids all the time, they still take up mental load, right? They still take up capacity. And if we think of how much capacity or bandwidth we have, and our kids take a big chunk, it really shortens what we have left over for other things. And I think it starts to interfere with, Kate and I were talking about this before, how we all have buckets. And we have different buckets that need filling, and these buckets kind of represent our needs, right? Yep. And I feel like with parenting, buckets are like splashing over and they're knocking down, and they're just not being like filled to the way we need to feel like balanced and to feel regulated most of the time.
Yeah.
Because not only is parenting hard, but it is so overstimulating. And hopefully this is something you guys also notice, that even, I never understood it until more recently, that idea of like, I need you to be quiet so I can think.
Mm-hmm.
That sentiment, I don't know if your parents ever said that to you, but my mom definitely said that to me. And at the time, you're like, that sounds, what do you mean?
Yeah.
No, I get that, right? Because it's just every sound, every touch, every task, every worry and anxiety, because, and maybe we'll talk about this one day on the show, is how your brain changes. And sorry, moms, organically now you have higher levels of anxiety. And all of those pieces take up a huge amount of our capabilities.
Yeah.
And then our patience is less. And all of the things, like we just have less to give to everything. And yet everything is more than it ever was.
Yeah. So then our kid says, hey, Mom, can I have a snack? And we just lose it. Like, it has nothing to do with the snack. Right? No. But all of these other things, we are just building. And the other thing about mom rage that I think is really important to pay attention to is that for the most part, we logically know that what we're getting frustrated about or what's bothering us is okay. So for example, developmentally, so I have like a 2-year-old. So my 2-year-old lately, if the gate is closed, he's like yanking on the gate, open, drives me crazy, because A, it's like ruining my walls, and B, it's like, hold on, like you can see I'm doing the dishes kind of thing, right? And it drives me crazy. But he's 2, so a 2-year-old trying to communicate to me that he wants me to open the gate, this is incredibly normal behavior. I know this just as a mom, I know this as a therapist, but it's still so triggering. But not because he's pulling on the gate and not because that he's asking me to open it, but because I'm trying to do a million other things. And because at the end of the day, I've already had a full day and I'm like about to explode already. So it's that one little thing. So even though I know the behavior is developmentally appropriate, I know there's nothing wrong, that's actually not a big deal. My body is responding like, oh my gosh, this is a big deal.
Yeah.
But it's, and then therefore my reaction, that's the rage, right? Where I may, yell or do something that I typically, that, doesn't necessarily align with how I want to parent. But I feel out of control in that moment.
Absolutely. And it's funny, like, how you're like, okay, he wants the gate open, but like, look, I'm doing something else.
I know.
Not only are you doing something else, but I imagine for most of us, you're doing something that, dishes aren't fun, but you're also thinking about bedtime's coming. Mm-hmm. I have to feed these kids. We're on a timeline. Oh my gosh, he's overtired, so I have less time. Oh, I didn't make that doctor's appointment. Man, my daughter hasn't been to the dentist yet. Oh, yes, the mental load thing, the PA day's coming. And so not only are you physically doing a million tasks, and the expectations of moms is so significant because, of course, you should be parenting like you don't have a job, and most of us have a job, so we should be doing that at a professional level and standard like we don't have kids. And then just
still being a good wife and still keeping your house clean and still, doing all the fun activities with your kid and making sure they're having the best childhood ever.
The pressure is ridiculous.
Yes.
So there's that. Then some sense piece, the noise, the touching, all of those pieces. I find like when my house is a mess and cluttered, I'm just edgier, even though honestly that's how I live most of the time, because you got to give some things up, and that had to go. So it's just the chaos physically, the chaos on the outside, the chaos on the inside that causes actually your body to respond as well. So then your body's edgy, and I don't know, like I said before, that like sometimes I feel where I feel hot inside.
Yeah.
And then of course my brain's gonna be like, whoo, we're hot inside. There must be something going on, right? And these things are gonna start to align, and well, then there's a catalyst where your kid asks for a snack and it's just not a good time.
Yeah.
Even though they're hungry, and I'm glad you asked me, but in that moment it just doesn't.
It's the tip of the iceberg.
It is. It's that final piece. So
what do we do about it?
So I think one of the things that's really important is we start to notice and have that self-awareness, while also, I hope if anything else you leave today with some self-compassion, that it is something happening to you. It is not who you are as a mom, and it doesn't speak to what type of mom you are. You are a great mom, and you are overstimulated and overworked, and the pressure and expectations are so significant. So I think giving yourself a little bit of leeway and permission to not like yell at our kids or do the behaviors, but if it happens, like some forgiveness and patience with the fact that, you know, it is happening, and it's happening to you. And then the other piece we kind of loosely started talking about was this idea of self-care. And I don't know.
Which I think, I mean, Kristen and I have lots of conversations about just that word in general and how it can be a little bit frustrating. And I mean, and even as therapists, sometimes I think we're torn between, like, do we use that word? But it's this idea, obviously, of taking care of ourselves, right? And because we're constantly meeting everybody else's needs, often at the expense of our own needs. So not usually in addition to, but at the expense of. Hence why we don't have the resources to manage, you know, what's happening, and therefore the big feelings and the rage. And so we started talking about self-care, or however we want to talk about that. And I think maybe we'll come up with some sort of way to talk about that. But I think because it's such a big thing and such an important thing, and something that most of us don't feel like we have the time to do, or really don't understand how to make that work, hence the frustrating part about somebody saying, oh, you need some self-care. Should we do another video on that and like really focus on it, you think?
Yeah, why don't we do that?
Yeah,
so
we can really devote time, because I think like we need it.
Yeah, I think what we want to avoid is saying, in order to fix your mom rage, do self-care.
Yeah.
Because that would
add something to your plate.
Cause me rage if someone told me that. So that is not what we're saying. But yes, we do need to put ourselves on our list. But I think the question is how, with all of these things happening that we've talked about, how do we do that? So I think that's a great idea. Why don't we table that?
Next video, realistic ways to integrate self-care.
And a new name for self-care.
Yeah, which we will think about between now and then.
That is a terrible word that I think is triggering for a lot of people. So tune in next week. We cannot wait to see you. And let's explore, how do moms do this? How do moms take care of themselves while taking care of everybody else?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. I hope you guys have a good day.
Great
See
weekend.
you next time.
Bye.
Bye.